With the Eagles being Super Bowl champions, it is now officially the offseason, and a lot has happened since our last mock draft, so now is the perfect time to start again. Now, there is still a lot that can happen between now and the draft, and there's a lot that more than likely will happen, including the combine and free agency and all that. So, this is not going to come anywhere close to the truth, but I'm going to do my best. Now, with the Titans, I maintain the same thought process that I had last time, where I don't think this team is anywhere near close enough to a quarterback away from being relevant. And I don't think there's a quarterback in this class that I think you would be comfortable taking at number one overall in any other circumstance. So I'm not going to give them a quarterback. I'm going to give them Abdul Carter. I'm going to keep giving them Abdul Carter. I truly do not believe in the quarterbacks in this class, or even the kind of guys that you can put in and just stabilize a locker room. I think they're going to have to look elsewhere in free agency for that. Maybe they draft a rookie later. I don't know. I don't think so. I think they're just going to ride out with Will Levis and, try to build a roster that isn't completely devoid of talent. The Cleveland Browns, I feel kind of similarly to the Titans, where, again, it's just I don't think there's a quarterback in this class that I can look to, especially for a team like Cleveland, that I think the biggest thing Cleveland needs is a cultural reset on that team and in that locker room, and I don't think there's a quarterback in this class that can do that. I wouldn't be shocked if they went out and signed Kirk Cousins for the vet minimum after he gets cut. Well, I should say if he gets cut, but at this point it's basically a foregone conclusion that he's going to get cut by the Falcons. I think they go out, they sign Kirk Cousins, and they just say, hey, we're going to build the best roster we can and try to win. And I don't think you do that with a rookie quarterback. I don't see it saving the jobs of Andrew Berry or Cliff Kingsbury. So I think they just take Travis Hunter, especially if there is a distinct possibility that they trade Myles Garrett. I fully believe they will trade Myles Garrett. And if that happens, there's a possibility that Denzel Ward asks out. Because, again, I think the problem in Cleveland isn't the locker room. It's a cultural problem, and that is not something you fix in a year, especially with a rookie quarterback. So, of course, we'll see what happens in the offseason, but I don't see them taking a quarterback. I don't think the Giants should take a quarterback either. But I think this is going to be a situation where Joe Shane, the GM of the New York Giants, is in desperation mode to try and save his job. I think he should have been fired this year. I'm shocked, honestly, that Joe Shane is still the GM of the Giants. I don't really believe in Brian Daboll either, and I think they're going to make a move that is purely in a I need to save my ass move. And I think they are going to operate under the assumption that a rookie quarterback is how they're going to do it. I think they're completely wrong this year, but I think Shedeur Sanders is the kind of guy that you look at and say, this guy has a very high floor. His ceiling may not be super high, but if we can just get a guy that's like a Kirk Cousins level of just maybe 15th, 14th best in the NFL, I think that's a massive improvement over what they've had previously. I don't think it's the right move for the Giants, but I think it is a move that I could see them making. For the Patriots, I've kind of changed my view on how the Patriots are going to operate, especially now that Mike Vrabel is their coach. In the last draft, I believe I had them taking Tedora McMillan. It was either McMillan or one of the offensive line guys, but I'm kind of leaning now more towards a defensive piece. I also think they are kind of a candidate to trade down, but this is not the kind of draft that you trade down in. But I am sort of leaning now towards the defensive side of the ball, especially after the performance that the Eagles just put up in the Super Bowl, where it has become very apparent that the defensive interior is the new way to play football. It's only going to come at more and more of a premium, and luckily, this is a great draft to get a premium interior pass rusher, and I think Mason Graham is that kind of guy. Obviously, there's still a lot of questions in New England. There's a lot they got to get done, but Drake May is the future. I think they've got that locked down, and I think they can just go best player available at this point. The Jacksonville Jaguars miss out on Mason Graham, and I think they would love to have Mason Graham. I could honestly see a universe where they go back-to-back defensive interior at the 4-5 turn, but I'm not going to do that this time. I could also see a universe where Tet McMillan is here at 5, and they say, you know what, give me Tet McMillan. But I'm not going to do that here either. I'm actually going to give them Will Johnson to beef up that secondary that's been pretty porous over the last couple of years. I know that they have that one guy whose name I can't remember that they just signed to an extension. But that's really about all they have back there. So I think they definitely could use the help in their secondary. I think defensively they need help everywhere. Realistically, for the Jaguars, there are a lot of great guys at the top of this draft for defense. It does kind of fall off later. I'm not super sold on some of these later pieces defensively, except for the D tackles and the D linemen. That is where I think this class is at its best. So, again, they could go defensive line at 5 as well, but we'll have to wait and see. The Raiders are on the clock, and I know that Cam Ward is here. I get that. I don't believe in Cam Ward even a little bit. I think Cam Ward is genuinely a massive bust. I don't think he's special in any way, and I know this makes me sound like a hater, and, being this adamant about something this early is prone to blow up in your face, but I just don't believe in Cam Ward at all, man. He's got more red flags than the Communist Party of China. I don't think he's a guy that fits a Pete Carroll scheme either. So I really just don't think they're going to do it. I think they go and they find somebody, right, in free agency, probably Sam Darnold. If I had to guess, I honestly could see Sam Darnold ending up on the Raiders. And I don't think that would be the worst choice for the Raiders, honestly. I think bringing in a guy like Sam Darnold on a team with absolutely zero expectations, I think that could work. But I don't think the Raiders are going to do it. I don't think the Raiders are going to draft Cam Ward. I don't like the fit. I don't like the player. So that's why I'm going to give him Tedor McMillan. Probably the best wide receiver in this class. Ted McMillan, he's fast, he's lengthy, he's got everything you want out of a number one receiver, and the Raiders are definitely a team that needs a number one receiver. You can like Jacoby Myers all you want. I like Trey Tucker a lot as a slot guy. Neither one of those guys are guys that I would trust to be, the guy, right? It's not a guy that I would trust in a Super Bowl to make big catches. So I think they definitely could go out and just grab the best wide receiver in the class, because they've needed a wide receiver for the longest time. That's why they traded for Devontae Adams all those years ago now in 2020 or whatever it was. But yeah, I think having a guy like Tet there would do wonders for that team, even if they are just kind of going to be coasting next year. The Jets, this could be where Cam Ward goes, but again, I don't like the fit. I don't like the player. It's possible, anything's possible. Quarterbacks get overdrafted all the time. Aaron Rodgers was recently told that he's not coming back. I don't know how likely it is that they're going to find, even a decent bridge quarterback. I mean, Russell Wilson maybe, And you know what? I actually will. I will give them Cam Ward, because this seems like the kind of thing the Jets would do. The Jets, honestly, I think the Jets need to completely tear down and rebuild, and I think that's what they're going to do. Garrett Wilson might get traded. There's some other pieces they might trade. They're probably losing DJ Reed in free agency. I think they go corner later, though, to address that. But the Jets need a complete overhaul of that roster. So again, I don't think they're a quarterback away, and I don't think quarterback is the right move for them. But it does seem like the kind of flashy sort of pick that you would make as a first-time GM and a first-time coach. Maybe that's not Aaron Glenn's style, or I can't remember their new GM's name, but it's entirely possible it's not their style to do the flashy thing. But there is an instance where I could see Cam Ward falling for sure, and if he does, I'm not sure how many other teams after this are going to take him. I truly don't believe the Saints would do it, especially because Kellen Moore is going to be their coach, it sounds like, and Cam Ward is not the kind of player that Kellen Moore enjoys coaching at all. So I don't see Cam Ward going to the Saints. I don't see him going to the Bears, the Niners, the Cowboys, Dolphins. I mean, the Colts maybe, if we let him fall that far. But I feel like I'd be crucified for doing that. Now the Panthers are here at 8, and I don't think I'd go Luther. You know what? Actually, I've been watching a lot of Mike Green lately. And I think I'm gonna give him Mike Green. Mike Green's a big guy, very, very versatile player. I think he's gonna start rising up a lot of these draft boards as the process continues. Because that's all he's been doing over the last few months, is just continually rising up boards, and I think that trend will keep going. I think it's a very good player. I think it's a very good fit for a Carolina team that definitely needs to find a Brian Burns replacement after trading him away. DJ Wanham is just not the kind of guy you ask to be your number one defensive lineman. So yeah, Mike Green. Good pick there for the Carolina Panthers. The New Orleans Saints is a team that, dear God, this team is in the depths, right? This team needs so much. Sounds like Kellen Moore is going to be their coach. I think they're stuck with Derek Carr for another year, and I think they're probably just going to roll with Rattler, even without Derek Carr. I don't see them, especially if Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, who are the projected top two guys, if they're both gone, I don't see them going out and grabbing a quarterback. I don't think Alvin Kamara is going to be there next year. I think Alvin Kamara is going to be cut by the team. I think that's the whole reason they reworked his deal, was to just make him more cuttable, which they did. But even with that, I don't see them going running back at 9. That would be, frankly, suicidal. They do need offensive line help for sure. Tight end, I could see. But honestly, I feel like this is going to be a defensive player. And especially on the interior, because everyone on the Saints interior is getting super old. So I am actually going to give them Kenneth Grant at number 9 for the Saints. For the Chicago Bears, with Ben Johnson coming in, I totally could see a world where they take Ashton Genty, like 100%. Ben Johnson loves to run the football. He loves dynamic offensive pieces that he can just throw around and do a bunch of shenanigans with. So I think there is a world where Ashton Genty goes to the Bears. However, this is not that world. I am going to give them Will Campbell. Now, Will Campbell is a guy that more than likely projects to guard in the NFL, but he could also have some upside on the tackle positions, it just wouldn't be his primary position. But I think he will be a guard in the NFL, and I think he'll be a damn good one too. But the Bears need offensive line help more than they need anything else. I wouldn't be shocked if they did what the Steelers did last year and draft multiple offensive line players, especially interior offensive line players, because that's one of the strengths of this class. So, Will Campbell to the Chicago Bears, and with the San Francisco 49ers, we're going to get real boring, and we're going to go back-to-back offensive linemen. Now, Armand Membu is a guy I really like to the Niners. I like him to the Bears, too, for the same reason where it's like he's probably going to be a guard in the NFL just because he's only 6'2", but at the Senior Bowl, we got his measurements, and his arm length is actually insane. He's got a wingspan of like 70, 71, 72, something like that. He's got massive, massive arms. So, like, if he can develop a good anchor, I feel like he'd be a great tackle. But just that versatility of being able to play on the inside or the outside, I think is something that the 49ers desperately need. So I'm going to give him Armand Membu to the 49ers. The Dallas Cowboys, I think, is another team that could, honest to God, go offensive line here. I don't think I'm going to do that right now. I think it is definitely possible, though, because there's one guy, what's his name? It's not Tyron Smith anymore. He went to the Jets. The other guy that was there for a long time, he's getting old. I think they did draft a rookie last year, though, if I remember correctly. I may be misremembering, but what I'm saying is I think the Cowboys could go offensive line, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to give them Ashton Genty, too. Part of me really wants to give him James Pierce Jr. because, like, there's a serious possibility that Micah Parsons doesn't get re-signed. Just because, they're going to suck. And you know what? This is my mock draft. I'm going to do it. I'm going to give him James Pierce Jr. I love James Pierce Jr. I think he's an incredible player. I think he's another guy like Mike Green that's just going to keep rising up draft boards as the process continues. And you know what? Good for him, right? Good for him. He was a monster at Tennessee. I've had my eyes on him for the last 2 years now. I think that's a great pick for the Cowboys. Now, the Dolphins, right? This is another team where I just think they go O-line. I know in my last mock draft last month, I said I've been always mocking them Malachi Starks. I've kind of cooled off on that idea just because their top 3 guards are all free agents, and I don't think they bring all 3 back. So I think this is a team that definitely could go for some interior help. Let's see here. I don't think Gray Zabel or Donovan Jackson or Wyatt Milam or Jonas Inaya goes quite this high, but I think it is possible. But I think I'm going to give them what might be the best true guard in this class, and that is Tyler Booker, just because they need to protect Tua, right? Like, that needs to be a top priority for them. And I think Tyler Booker is a great way to do it. It could also be tackle, just because Teron Armstead, he's old and he doesn't stay healthy anymore, and I don't even remember the name of the other guy. I think it might still be Austin Jackson, actually. But I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I think it will be offensive line for the Dolphins, like 100%. The more I think about it, the more I read up on what the team is looking like going into free agency. Of course, free agency hasn't happened, but I think it will be offensive line for them, and they get the best guard in the class, more than likely, unless it's actually Armand Membu, which is 49er. The Colts, I think this is a slam dunk pick. Tyler Warren. The Colts, they do need edge. And they do need secondary help, but I think they can find some depth pieces because it's not like an immediate, like they have some stopgaps there that I think they like, and I think they just need like a DB2 or an edge 2, and I think they can find that later in this draft. But the Colts have missed on the tight end position for like the last 6 years, man. They just cannot get it right. I think the last tight end that was worth anything for the Colts was Eric Ebron, like 7 years ago at this point. But yeah, I think Tyler Warren to the Colts makes a lot of sense. I think giving Anthony Richardson just some kind of safety blanket, I think that could be huge for potentially revitalizing his career. Of course, I don't know if he'll stay healthy or what that's going to look like, but I think Tyler Warren is a great pick for the Colts, and I feel like everybody has been giving them Tyler Warren, so who am I to change the trend? Now, the Atlanta Falcons, right? I don't know what it is about Terry Fontenot, or I think his name is Terry Fontenot. I know his last name is Fontenot, but the GM of the Falcons, for some reason, I don't think he knows what an edge rusher is, because he hasn't drafted one, in like 4 years or however long he's been there. He just doesn't draft edge rushers. And I think we need to change that. And in order to do that, I'm actually going to give them... He is not listed as an edge rusher, but he should be... There he is. Jalon Walker. Now, I'm giving them Jalen Walker because of his versatility. He can play multiple positions on the defensive side of the ball, whether it's off ball or on ball. He kind of reminds me of like a diet Micah Parsons in that way, but, not nearly as athletic. But I think Jalen Walker will be a phenomenal edge rusher in the NFL. And I think, especially because I don't believe Arnold Ebiketie is like that bad, right? I think they just need like a premier option alongside him, and I think that will elevate his play as well. And I think Jalen Walker can definitely do that and help elevate the rest of the line just by being who he is. So Jalen Walker to the Atlanta Falcons. The Cardinals. I see a lot of people give the Cardinals D-line, and honestly, their defense really surprised me this year. It played way better than I thought it would. So I don't really think they're going to go and get D-line at the top of the draft, just because, the way that this draft class is set up, I think they can find value there later. So I think this could be a team that goes and drafts offensive line, but I could also see them taking Ashton Jeanty. I know that sounds completely heretical because they have James Conner, but James Conner's getting old, man. I don't know how much I believe in him long term, but I could see this as a team that drafts Ashton Jeanty, but I don't think we're going to get that crazy just yet. We're already getting a little crazy with Ashton Jeanty being all the way down here. I understand that. Believe me, I do. But I just don't think this is the kind of draft class where you can look at a running back and be like, oh yeah, I've got time to take a luxury pick, right? Because that's what he is. That's what the running back position has become. The running back position is pure luxury. And I like all of these teams, some of them do need running back, like the Raiders, the Patriots for sure, the Browns, right? God, the Browns taking running back at 2 all these years later would be so funny. But like all these teams that potentially could take a running back, including the Cowboys, I just think there are other positions that they need and that they also value more. Of course, that is an entire debate about positional value that we're not going to get into right now, but what we are going to do is we're going to go here and we are going to give the Arizona Cardinals a new tackle. We're going to give him Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. I don't know how much longer the Cardinals are going to stick with Kyler Murray. I think that train is starting to warm up and get ready to leave the station. But, O-line is going to start coming at a premium in this league, more than it already is. So if you can hit on some serious starters on the offensive line, that's a huge bump. It's a huge boost to your team. And I think that is something that the Cardinals would definitely benefit from having. So Kelvin Banks Jr. to the Cardinals. To the Cincinnati Bengals, this is going to be a defensive player no matter what. Without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, this is going to be defense. It could be anywhere on defense. Let me see. Who is here? I don't think it's going to be corner because I'm kind of cooling off on some of these corners, but he's still here. I'm going to give them Michael Williams out of Georgia, another edge rusher that it could be really good in the NFL. I think he's more like that second tier of edge rusher. I think a lot of these guys are. But, that's not a bad thing, obviously. You can never have too many pass rushers, but I don't think there's like a huge difference maker in this class, like a Naden Hutchinson or a Will Anderson type. I think it's more like second tier, 10 through 15, 10 through 20 kind of guys. But in terms of the Cincinnati Bengals, especially if Trey Hendrickson leaves in free agency, that's a massive upgrade. Right, the Bengals defense is just one of the worst in the league, mostly because it lacks talent. Right, I don't think Luarano, however you say his last name, I don't think he was the problem in Cincinnati. I think it was just because they have nothing on the defensive side of that ball, especially because DJ Reader left and Jesse Bates left, and obviously they were never going to pay Jesse Bates, but all the defensive talent left. And especially if it happens again with Trey Hendrickson, Michael Williams is a great fit. The Seattle Seahawks here. If Jalen Walker did not go to the Falcons at 15, I think this would be a great fit for Jalen Walker. I could also see this be a fit for Ashton Genty because Kenneth Walker never stays healthy, but that seems to be a trend with the Seattle Seahawks running backs for whatever reason. I like Gray Zabel a lot. I think he's going to be a great guard, but I still feel like this is a little bit early for him. Let me see here. What do we feel about edge rusher? Shamar Stewart's good. Yeah. You know what? I think, and this could be hearsay, I think this is a great spot for Jack Sawyer to end up. Jack Sawyer is another guy like James Pierce where, the more I look at him, the more I like him. I think Jack Sawyer could be a very, very good player in the NFL, and I think he fits very well into what the Seahawks are trying to do defensively. I think he's exactly the kind of player that Mike McDonald would want. I understand that they need offensive line, but there's a ton of depth there for them later in this draft. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I know a lot of people give them Jalen Walker. I'm going to stick at linebacker if my scroll wheel would cooperate. And I'm gonna give him Jihad Campbell. They got to replace Levante David at some point, and I think Jihad Campbell would do that phenomenally well. So in Jihad Campbell, welcome to Tampa Bay for the Broncos. I almost said Buccaneers again. The Broncos here, I've seen this pick happen more and more, where the Broncos get Luther Burden. And I think it does make a lot of sense. I think they're definitely going to go heavy on giving Bo Nix as many weapons as they can just to maximize his rookie contract, because I don't think Bo Nix's ceiling is all that high. I think he's a very high floor kind of guy, but his ceiling I think is, about where his floor is. So I think Luther Burden is a great fit there. Especially because he doesn't have to take, all of the targets, right? They still have Cortland Sutton Maybe Marvin Mims is something, but Luther Burden, I think, can develop into that true number one kind of player for the Broncos. Now, the Steelers are very interesting. Both of their running backs are free agents, right? They need a quarterback. They're probably bringing Justin Fields back. Probably, maybe, kind of. I don't know. It's hard to say without, the benefit of hindsight with the free agent period happening. But this could be a team that drafts Ashton Jeanty. And I know that Steelers fans are going to absolutely hate that I'm saying this, but it's definitely possible. I'm not going to do it. Don't worry. But I'm saying it's definitely possible. And I know that you're all screaming at me because Ashton Jeanty is still on the board. I understand that. I know. I get it. He is a phenomenal prospect. Easily top 5 in this draft class. But again, I don't think this is the kind of draft class where these teams at the top are going to take that luxury at drafting a running back. Because we saw what happens, right? The Giants in 2017 drafted Saquon Barkley at number 2. Okay? I loved Saquon Barkley as a prospect. I had him mocked to 2 all the time. I didn't think it was the right move. I thought it was a terrible move. And in hindsight, it probably was a terrible move because you can't win a Super Bowl drafting a running back at number 2. You just can't. We saw the Falcons do it with Bijan Robinson not too long ago. They drafted Bijan Robinson. I believe he was top 10. I think he was number 8. If I remember correctly, I think Bijan was number 8. The Lions went and got Jahmyr Gibbs at 12, if I recall correctly. And that, I think, is about the start where you'd start putting Ashton Jeanty into the conversation at pick number 12. I don't think they're going to do it just because I really don't think the Cowboys are a team that does that. And then, these next couple teams, the Dolphins, the Colts, the Falcons, Cardinals, I think they have their running back situation mostly figured out. The Cardinals, I think, are kind of a question. And then you have the Bengals, who are 100%, I think they're going defense. Seattle's probably going defense. Buccaneers don't need a running back. Broncos maybe need a running back. Steelers maybe need a running back. But I think the Steelers will go another direction. I think they should probably realistically go defense. But if the option is presented, I think they are going to take Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State to pair with George Pickens and give whoever is throwing the ball in Pittsburgh next year ample opportunity to have multiple options to throw to, unlike just having George Pickens the entire time. So that is my selection for the Steelers. I didn't mean to give you heart attacks there and suggesting that you were going to take Ashton Jeanty, but for Chargers fans, yes, in fact, you are taking Ashton Jeanty, because this is Jim Harbaugh's offense, and boy, does that man love to run the football. So J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards are both free agents. I don't think you have anything in, what's his name? Vidal, I think? Vidal? What is it? What is his first name? Like Kimmy or something? Kimmy? You guys know who I'm talking about. That one running back that everyone loved in fantasy that turned into nothing. Don't think he's much of anything at the NFL level. So if Ashton Jeanty does fall, and I fully believe that he will, despite being a phenomenal prospect, if he does fall and if he's there at 22, or even if the Chargers, and don't crucify me for this, okay? If the Chargers trade up, they're taking Ashton Jeanty. I want it to be well known. If the Chargers trade up, on the exact express if that they trade up, bookmark it right away, it's Ashton Jeanty. Anyway, not to be pedantic, the Packers recently had a bit of a locker room controversy with Josh Jacobs stating explicitly they need to get a true number 1 wide receiver. And as it so happens right now, that number 1 wide receiver might just be Matthew Golden out of Texas. Now, I am a Texas Longhorns fan. I'm also a LSU Tigers fan. And there's no LSU receivers this year. I'm so sorry, Green Bay. You missed out. Okay, maybe next year, but Matthew Golden, I like him quite a bit. I like him a lot more than Isaiah Bond. Um, I don't think he's like, a superstar number one option, but I think he definitely can be um, a step up from guys like Jaden Reed or Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson. I think he's definitely better than Christian Watson. Um, but, kind of like that middle tier wide receiver one, which still I think is a massive, massive, massive improvement over what they have currently. Um, it'll probably be a corner in real life for the Green Bay Packers because Jair Alexander has practically telegraphed his exit from the team. And that team is already so young. But I think Matthew Golden is a good pick for them. I think he is definitely number one capable. It might be a little bit of a growth spurt that he needs, not, literally, but to, transition at the NFL level. But I think Matthew Golden's a great pick for them. The Vikings have practically come out and said, we're getting offensive linemen. They made it very clear that they are not happy with their guard situation. And if we go ahead and we look here, we've got Gray Zabel. And here we have Donovan Jackson is still here. Wyatt Milam is still here. Jonas Avitinai has fallen down this board, but, I don't think he deserves to fall that far. Marcus Embo, another guy that's probably going to be a guard at the NFL. Tate Ratledge is still here. If I was going to give them anybody here at number 24, and if it is going to be offensive line, which I think it will, despite the fact that they also desperately need some interior pressure. Good God, they don't get any. I think they're at like the bottom of the league. So it's like, Tyleek Williams, Walter Nolan, Darius Anderson, those guys are still here. But I think it will be interior offensive line, and I think Gray Zabel will be the pick in this scenario with how the draft has fallen. I will be giving them Gray Zabel. I think it will be a great guard in the NFL, especially because I don't think Trey Smith is going to hit the open market anymore after the performance in the Super Bowl where he was the only guy who looked like he could stop anyone. The Texans, I also think, are going to draft pretty heavily into linemen this year, with Gray Zabel and Tyler Booker, Will Campbell, Herman Membu. They're all gone. I think there's kind of a drop-off at the guard spot right now, and I can't lie to you, I haven't looked at centers at all. There's no one here I'd really give him for wide receiver. I don't think they quite need corner. Tight end isn't really a need. Like wide receiver, I think they will draft 100%, but probably not right now. Just looking at who's here. I think they will draft a wide receiver in like round 2 or 3. Running back probably isn't something they draft now. I do think they could go for it later. Safety they probably will pick up. Edge rusher, no, not really. But putting somebody that's like a true difference maker, like just a pure wrecker guy, gets up in the face of the opposing line, alongside Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, I really like that. I like that idea a lot. And in fact, I like it so much. I'm going to give the Texans Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss. I watched a lot of Ole Miss this year. Only because I like Jackson Dart as a project. I don't think he's going to be a superstar in the NFL, but I think he is a good project QB, and I can't help myself from liking project QBs. So that's beside the point, but I do think Jackson Dart ends up on the Rams. Yeah, I watched a lot of Mississippi. Walter Nolan is a freak, man. Walter Nolan's really, really good. I think he could be another guy that starts rising up the draft board and goes a lot higher than this, but if the opportunity presents itself for the Texans to beef up that defensive line, because this is a topic for another day, but I think the Super Bowl that we just watched is indicative of a shift coming in the NFL about draft philosophy and roster building philosophy, that the defensive line is more important than ever, especially because I think running backs are going to make a comeback. But again, the defensive line has to be a priority for any team that wants to compete. I think the Texans want to compete with C.J. Stroud still on a rookie deal. I think beefing up that interior defensive line, they also have to do it on the offensive side, of course, but improving the roster on both sides of the trench, I think, should be a massive, massive priority for the Texans. And in this instance, the best available player is on the defensive side of that line. The Rams could get really interesting this offseason. There have been some floaters about Matthew Stafford. Will he retire? Will he ask to be cut? Whatever. That, I think, is beside the point right now. We've got a whole month to figure that out. In this scenario, though, Sean McVay loves to run 2 tight end sets. Cooper Kupp has been told he will not be part of the team next year. Colston Loveland has survived the Chargers, magically. He's going to the Rams. The Baltimore Ravens, I don't mind them taking tackle here, just because Ronnie Stanley is a free agent, and their other guy I can't remember the name of. Don't know if he's any good, honestly. Didn't watch a lot of Ravens games this year. But I know Ronnie Stanley is a free agent, and there's no guarantee that he will be back. So I'm going to give them Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. Makes the run game a lot easier if your O-line can hold up. Ask the Detroit Lions, who I fully believe, in real life, the Detroit Lions will trade for Myles Garrett. I think they'll pay a heavy premium to do it, and I don't think they care. I fully believe in my heart, without a shadow of a doubt, the Detroit Lions are going to call Cleveland the minute the new league year starts. The absolute second down to the wire. The minute the possibility presents itself, I think they're going to get on the phone and they're going to say, hey, Cleveland, do you want 2 first-round picks, a 2nd-round pick, some backup edge rusher that we don't even need, and, whatever else? And the Cleveland Browns are going to be like, hey, sure. So I think this pick is going to be the Browns' pick in the future. But in the evidence presented in front of us right now is currently the Detroit Lions. And the Detroit Lions do not currently have Myles Garrett on their roster. But believe you me, in a month's time, plus or minus 7 days, I think it will be Myles Garrett. Since it's not Myles Garrett, I'm going to give him Shamar Stewart, another guy that I think has been rising up a lot of boards. Shamar Stewart's pretty good, man. He's pretty good. A lot of these edge rushers, I think, are right on top of each other. I don't think there's a huge gap between them. Maybe somebody takes a leap at the combine. Hard to say. I don't think there's a huge gap between the top 5-6 guys in this class. And I think the Lions definitely do need a guy on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson just to fully maximize what he does. They could probably use someone who's not DJ Reader, because I feel like DJ Reader was a definite letdown for the kind of money that they paid him. But, they paid him. He's there for the next 3 years. You just got to live with it. Aleem McNeil is a beast, though. Oh, my God, Aleem McNeil's good. But yeah, Shamar Stewart, I think, is that perfect edge number 2 that, will draw enough attention away from Aiden Hutchinson and Aleem McNeil and just overwhelm opposing offensive lines in the scenario that they don't trade for Myles Garrett, which I fully believe they will trade for Myles Garrett. Fully believe 100% they're going to trade for Myles Garrett. But, of course, I say that so confidently, it could be wrong, but I think the Lions will trade for Myles Garrett. Washington could also be on that list of teams that goes and tries to snag Myles Garrett, but I think Detroit would be in the driver's seat for that. And in the evidence, right, in the possibility that the Detroit Lions don't have the Detroit Lions do have Myles Garrett, I should say. I think Washington would be a great spot for Shamar Stewart as well. But in the evidence that we are currently being provided with, they do not have Myles Garrett, and Shamar Stewart is gone. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give them Jahdae Barron. Now, Jahdae Barron is a nickel corner, right? He's going to be a nickel in the NFL, and he's probably going to be a very, very good one. He reminds me a lot of Brian Branch, like a lot of Brian Branch. Wicked fast, good instincts, good hands, all of that. His actual coverage skills could use some development, but just the kind of athlete he is, his skill set, I think he is a nickel corner, and I think nickel corners are another spot on the roster, like interior pass rushers, that are only going to get more and more valuable over the coming years. Because, we saw it in the Super Bowl. Cooper DeJean, I think the nickel spot is going to become more and more valuable. So I think Jahdae Barron on that Commanders defense that definitely needs some work is a great spot for him. The Buffalo Bills is another team that absolutely needs defensive help pretty much everywhere. You could give them Benjamin Morrison. I wouldn't hate you for doing that. You could give them... Who's here? Let's see. Come on. You'll have to forgive me, my scroll wheel is broken, but you could give him Tyreek Williams. You could. And you know what? The more I think about it, just looking at it, like who's here, I think I will give him Benjamin Morrison, because Kaiir Elam is not it. The Kansas City Chiefs, 100%. It's going to be offensive line. Just 100%. It's going to be on offensive line. And I like Cameron Williams for the Chiefs here. Now, the Eagles just won the Super Bowl, obviously, and there is a distinct possibility that they lose quite a bit of their defensive pieces on the defensive line, at least, because Brandon Graham has all but said he's retiring. What's his name? I can't. Not Zach Bond, because Zach Bond doesn't play on the edge, but Zach Bond is a free agent. But that other guy. I can't think. Josh Sweat. I almost said Josh Pascal. Josh Sweat, I believe, is also a free agent. And we know how the Eagles love their defensive line. And there's a very specific player that I think they are going to love as well, and not just because he is already an Eagle, but that is Donovan Ezeraku, I believe is how you say it, Ezeraku, perhaps. I think that is the player that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to draft. I think he's a great fit for them. Again, not just because he's already an Eagle. I really, really do like Ezeraku. I'll learn his name eventually. But like I said with some of these other edge rushers, I think he's another guy that will rise up the board going forward. And again, the Eagles just love their defensive line. I think they're going to go and draft defensive line, even if they're able to keep Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham stays and, all these other possibilities that could happen. But that is my second mock draft. I'll probably not do another one until we have free agency figured out and ready to go. But, yeah, you can disagree with my picks all you want. This is, of course, well before I have even remotely close to enough information to make anything really confident or even close to a true prediction for a mock draft. This is mostly just for fun. So I thank you very much for watching and tuning in. I hope to speak with you all again soon, and goodbye for now.